Hey there everyone! In this video, we'll be discussing the Acheron complete build, covering her relics, light cones, and potential team compositions. With the upcoming release of version 2.1, we'll finally get an idea of what the hell is going on in Penacony. Acheron is likely to get her banner in the first phase, so we'll have the chance to pull for her right when version 2.1 drops. If you're curious about how many stellar jades you can save for Acheron, watch this video, and I'll also provide a link in the description. Before we jump into the details, please note that the information shared here is based on my personal opinion. If you disagree or believe I've made a mistake, feel free to correct me in the comments. For those who don't know, Acheron is an upcoming 5-star lightning character following the path of nihility. She looks to be a strong DPS, one of the strongest DPS in the star rails so far. She will become available in the first half of version 2.1. So for those pulling for her, then this video might be helpful to you. Acheron's kit may seem very complicated, but it's quite simple and extremely overpowered. Her kit allows her to break toughness, irrespective of the enemy's weakness type, and deal massive AoE and single target damage, all in the same turn. Her talent is extremely broken, as it reduces the all-type resistance of enemies when Acheron uses her ultimate, while also allowing her to deal toughness damage irrespective of the enemy's weakness type, similar to Shui. When any other character uses their ability to inflict debuffs on an enemy target, Acheron gains 1 point of Slash Dream and inflicts 1 Crimson Knot on the enemy target. If the ability inflicts debuffs on multiple enemies, Crimson Knot will be inflicted on the enemy with the most Crimson Knot stacks. The ideal way to play Acheron is to constantly use her skill to inflict Crimson Knot and gain Slash Dream while dealing damage, and then use her ultimate when it is unlocked. While using her skill, she gains 1 point of Slash Dream, inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a single target enemy, and deals lightning damage to them. The most interesting part of her kit is her ultimate. After using her ultimate, she opens her domain expansion with its sure hit effect, ignoring all weakness types. She unleashes Rainblade 3 times and Stygian Resurge 1 time. So that means her ultimate is divided into 4 parts. Rainblade deals damage to a single enemy and removes 3 Crimson Knots. When Crimson Knot is removed, it immediately deals lightning damage to all enemies. This Rainblade will trigger 3 times, and at last, deals lightning damage to all enemies, removing all Crimson Knots. After using her technique, Quadrivalent Ascendance, she immediately attacks the enemy. After entering battle, Acheron gains 1 point of Slash Dream and deals lightning damage to all enemies, as well as inflicting 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a single random enemy and reducing toughness of all enemies irrespective of weakness types. If attacking a normal enemy, she immediately defeats them without entering combat. When not hitting any enemies, no technique points are consumed. About her traces. Her Trace 1, help Acheron to immediately gain 5 points of Slash Dream and apply 5 stacks of Crimson Knot to a random enemy. With this trace, she will have 6 stacks after entering battle, 5 from traces and 1 from using her technique, and you can get others when applying debuffs on enemies and using her skill. So you can use the ultimate pretty early. Her Trace 2, the most important part of her kit, when there are 1 or 2 other characters following the path of nihility in the team, increases the damage of Acheron's basic attack, skill, and ultimate to 115% and 160% respectively of the original damage. Her Trace 3, when the ultimate's Rainblade hits an enemy target with Crimson Knot, increases the damage dealt by Acheron. This effect can be stacked up to 3 times, lasting for 3 turns. And when Stygian Resurge triggers, additionally deals damage for 6 times, each time dealing some lightning damage. Acheron's kit has 2 main parts, Crimson Knots and Slash Dream. As Acheron doesn't have energy, she uses her ultimate when the Slash Dream count reaches 9. Crimson Knots are inflicted on enemies, and enemies with Crimson Knots take increased ultimate damage from her. Acheron can gain Slash Dream and inflict Crimson Knot stacks by using her skill or when any ally debuffs an enemy. Her Ascension abilities also allow her to gain some at the start of the battle. In the next section are her relics and overall stats. The main build I recommend is the usual crit body, speed boots, lightning sphere, and attack link rope. But there are also a few other options if you can manage to get those in sub-stats. Let's go through some other few options. Replacing her speed boots with attack % boots leads to a 19% increase in damage to her ultimate. Replacing Link Rope with ER doesn't make sense as she cannot generate energy. There is also an insane option, an all-attack build where replacing all with attack percent leads to an insane 39% increase in her ultimate. However, if you manage to get some speed and crit rate in the stats, you can use this all-attack build. Finally, replacing Lightning Sphere with Attack Sphere can lead to a 5% increase in her ultimate. When building Acheron, simply focus on stacking as much crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent as possible. Try to hit a ratio of 70% crit rate and 180% crit damage with the stats. Other than that, use a speed boost to hit the speed breakpoints, as the more turns Acheron has, the quicker her ultimate recharges. As for 4-piece relic options, the best set is the 4-piece Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters, as it significantly increases her damage to debuffed enemies, as well as increased crit rate and crit damage against enemies having 2 to 3 debuffs. Other than that, the 4-piece Band of Sizzling Thunder is also a good pick as it increases lightning damage and the damage of her skill attacks. There is another option you can use, the 4-piece Genius of Brilliant Stars, which is among the best relic sets for any DPS, as the defense ignore percentage of the 4-piece is extremely useful. As for planar ornaments, the 2-piece Izumo Jensei and Takuma Divine Realm is the best ornament set for Acheron, as it increases attack as well as crit rate, but you need another Nihility character to use this effect, which you can have all the time since you will be using Acheron with other Nihility characters. Other than that, the 2-piece Inert Salsato is also a good option as it increases crit rate and ultimate damage, and 2-piece Space Sealing Station for increased Acheron attack. But the best option for Acheron is to use the 4-piece Pioneer Diver set and 2-piece Izumo Jensei set. Let's look at Acheron's best light cones. Obviously, the best light cone for Acheron is her signature light cone. But there are other options that you can use if you are not pulling for her light cone. Acheron's signature light cone, along the passing shore, increases her crit damage by a whopping 36%. When she attacks the enemy, she inflicts empty bubbles on them, increasing her damage by 24% if the enemy is afflicted with empty bubbles. Then her ultimate damage additionally increases by 24%. She seems to rely on her signature light cone too much, but there are other options like Welt's light cone. I'm sure many of you already have one, as it increases damage to debuffed enemies by 24%. After using the skill, it increases effect hit rate by 18% and attack increases by 24%. This is not as good as her light cone, but you can still use it. Other than that, you can use the Good Night Sleep Well light cone. This is one of the best 4-star light cones that you can use for Acheron, as it increases her damage based on the debuffs inflicted on enemies. If you have Silver Wolf's light cone, you can use that as well. Incessant Rain, it increases effect hit rate by 24%. When dealing damage to an enemy that currently has 3 or more debuffs, it increases the wearer's crit rate by 12%, with a 100% chance of inflicting debuffs on enemies and also increasing the damage for 1 turn. Another decent option is the It's Showtime light cone that you can get from the Forgotten Hall shop. When the wearer inflicts a debuff on an enemy, they gain a stack of Trick. Every stack of Trick increases the wearer's damage by 6%, stacking up to 3 times. Additionally, if effect hit rate is 80% or higher, attack is increased by 20%. Acheron's best teams will feature at least 1 or 2 other Nihility characters to best utilize her Trace 2 ability. Her best team will be alongside other Nihility characters. She is not a dot character, however, she relies heavily on debuffs, and dots are considered debuffs. Black Swan is one of the best Nihility DPS partners for Acheron as she can constantly apply debuffs while also dealing insane dot damage. Fushuan provides solid sustain for any team. Pella and Ginelifin are your 2 most accessible 4-star units to run with Acheron. If you have Ginelifin E1 and Pella E4, the team will perform better. If you have Silver Wolf, you can use her instead of Ginelifin, and Silver Wolf's defense shred for a massive damage boost. An Acheron team including Pella, Silver Wolf, and Sustain is one of Acheron's best teams in an E0 hypercarry setup, and it can dish out amazing damage. If you have Silver Wolf using before the tutorial mission starts Light Cone and Pella using Resolution Shine's Light Cone, you can reduce your enemy's defense stat. Other than that, you can also use Sparkle, Bronia, Ginelifin, Wanmei, or Whelp next to Acheron. Tingyun can also work with Acheron with her attack and damage increase, but the energy recharge of Tingyun's ultimate will be wasted on Acheron. Acheron's Eidolons are extremely powerful and enhance her kit even further. Her E1 gives her a straight 18% crit rate increase when dealing damage to debuffed enemies. Acheron's E2 reduces the nihility character requirement for her trace and allows her to gain 1 stack of Slash Dream and inflict Crimson Knot at the beginning of her turn. Her E4 makes enemies vulnerable to ultimate damage, while her E6 increases her crit damage and ultimate damage by 60%. While making her skill and basic attack damage be considered as ultimate damage. Overall, an E6 Acheron is going to be the most broken DPS, and no other DPS units, likely even Jinglu, may get close to her. However, her kit is already powerful by itself and doesn't necessarily need any investment in her Eidolons. To sum it up, she deals a lot of damage and can use her ultimate frequently using debuffs. Personally, she feels like a top-tier DPS character, similar to previous 5-star DPS characters like Jinglu and Danhum. So, the main question is, should you pull for Acheron? I mean, why do we even need an answer to this question? If you have Stellar Jades, make sure to do all you can to pull for Acheron, as she is going to be one of the best, if not the best, DPS characters in the game. She can deal massive single-target, AoE, and blast damage while breaking toughness irrespective of the enemy weakness type, and her technique can insta-kill enemies without entering combat. Acheron is definitely a must-pull. So, what do you think of Acheron? As always, let me know in the comments if I missed anything. That concludes the video. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.